Yo, what is going on, everybody? We're back, Robot Mentality Podcast, episode 12. Today is a very, very special occasion, a joyous occasion. Nick, you wanna walk us into what's going on here?
Yes, sir. We have our first guest here on episode 12. His name is Alex Stodola, good friend of mine from way back when through high school and going on through college, staying friends throughout that. And now we're both starting our career. So, Alex, he hails from Coleman,
The
Wisconsin, Pound Town.
Pound Town.
Pound Town,
Al-
baby.
Thanks for being here, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I've been looking forward to it. I actually watched some of your stuff, and I've been reading a little bit about your whole setup, and I like it.
All right.
For sure.
Well,
Yeah. First podcast appearance, first career podcast appearance. We'll run you
first
through
for
a
many. Let's
quick
go.
little resume I put together on Alex. Alex, let me know if I need to be corrected on anything. He is a 2015 high school graduate, Coleman High. He was a three-sport athlete: football, wrestling, baseball. He moved on to University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, played baseball there all 4 years, where he excelled greatly. He played 3 years in the prestigious Northwoods League, which is really the premier summer collegiate baseball league other than the Cape Cod League. It's pretty much, I would say, what would you say? It's just about as good as playing low-level pro ball, Alex, right?
Yeah, I would say that it's just a step below. Basically, it's just that transition to see if college players have the drive and the capability of playing in the pro level. You're getting to play against a lot of the top talent.
Yeah, so he did pretty well there as he was invited back for 2 years after his first. He was definitely a professional pitching prospect. Got scouted by a lot of MLB teams. Went through a whole scouting process with them. Some injuries sidetracked him. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Since then, he graduated in 2019 from University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. He's got a lot of work experience, I would say, in sales, primarily with Fastenal, Aflac, and now he's on to a new venture. Social media, he doesn't have a whole lot of it. Instagram is Alex_Stodola. Look him up. He does not have a SoundCloud with any country music to promote. Um,
Screw you, man.
he also has a Facebook, but I'm pretty sure that was just so he could get Tinder, if I remember correctly. So, ladies, if you're listening and you want
Hit
to
our
hop
boy
on,
up. Let's
hit
go.
hit up Tinder Premium. Go out to Pound Town, Wisconsin. Swipe right on your boy. All right, so that's our quick little intro to Alex. Now, what we want to do, we want to get the viewers to know Alex. We also want Ben to get to know Alex. Ben, Alex, and I, we just talked for about 10 minutes before this. Otherwise, it's their first time meeting. So what we're going to do, we're going to do some rapid fire questions for Alex. Ben, if you want to explain to Alex what you're going to be doing here.
All right,
just get to know
Alex,
him.
we're gonna hit you with a couple things we kind of thought of, and we want what did we say, Nick? We want one sentence or less, even if it's like a one-word
No.
response.
One word or as few, like just answer the question. Like Family Feud, Fast Money, like
Okay.
boom, we're running through these.
So okay, basically one word. All right, you ready for this? It's gonna get intense.
Yeah, you guys are putting me on the
inner,
spot right
the
away.
inner machinations of your mind are gonna be public
Yeah,
right here.
and we didn't. These are all off the cuff. We didn't share these with them beforehand. So
Yep.
here we go, Ben.
All right, number one, colonize Mars.
Absolutely.
Favorite TV channel.
A&E.
Okay, good one. Favorite music genre.
All right. This is
You
a
can say
question.
it.
This is a question I have. No. My favorite music genre right now is like I you can't call it like alt rock because it's not, but I would say like the genre where like Red Hot Chili Peppers and like almost to grunge, like somewhere in that spectrum. So I
Damn. Yeah. Good stuff. All right, that's fair.
It's a
Like
little
that
more
middle
than one
ground.
word, but we'll take it.
Least favorite music genre.
Pop.
Good freaking answer. I already like this guy a lot, Nick.
I told you would. He's
And
robot mentality encapsulates it.
Go-to song if you're trying to vibe.
Over the Hills and Far Away. Led Zeppelin.
All
That's
right.
right.
Scale 1 to 10, your dancing skills.
4.
2.
If you could live anywhere other than Pound Town, where would it be?
Right now, Nashville.
You have $50,000 to spend, no investments or anything like that. Where's it going?
I'm probably purchasing or putting a down payment on a house.
That's an investment.
That's
You
an
got to spend some
investment. No
fun
investment.
pitching
Son
there.
of a bitch. All right. Now you.
This is when you know he's robot mentality. You can't
That,
think of anything he
Yeah.
wants to spend his money on.
that's what I'm saying. All right. I've been dabbling a lot with golf. I would probably say some sort of membership at a decent country club.
All right. Dream
We'll
job.
take that.
Business owner, entrepreneur.
Good. All right. This one's a little different, but give me 3 items that would make your bucket list.
3 items that would make my bucket list.
Well,
Or
not
one that's
items,
on the
but just
top.
things, I guess.
3 things, I guess. Like things were being very broad, right? I would say friends. Does that count, or is that what we're looking for?
Let's just say like one thing you want to do before you die, like any like sort of event or excursion. But that was a nice answer. Anything, something you got to do.
Well, I am deathly afraid of heights. I tell myself I wouldn't jump out of any airplane, but I feel like that's something I want to do just to overcome that fear.
Okay. All right.
Epic.
1.
Another one, I want to go to like a large scale music festival, like a Woodstock or something like that, just to kind of feel, I don't know, a different sort of atmosphere than anything that I've ever been to. And
Yeah. Good.
the last one is experience a baseball game at, I would say, PNC looks like the prettiest park to me.
PNC's dope. I saw a
PNC is
walk-off
dope.
home run there. Ivan Rodriguez, baby.
Pudgeruski, eh?
Wait, I think I said the wrong name. Who's the other? I can't
Sean?
even... Yes, Sean
Oh
Rodriguez.
my gosh. Big
He hit a
difference
walk-off
there.
nuke in front of me. I don't know why I always say Ivan Rodriguez. It's
Sean
not him.
Rodriguez too. That dude, he's not with the Pirates anymore. I don't even know if he retired or what now. But he legitimately looked like a pirate though. Like he perfectly fit the pirate team. I don't know why. He just looked like a freaking pirate. You
He
put him
was
in an
Pittsburgh.
outfit, he literally would be a pirate. All right. Next, kind of. You can thank Sailor for this one. On a scale 1 to 10, how cool are you, Alex?
I would say like a solid 7. I'm a little dry when it comes to some things, but I'll let her rip when it comes to other topics and just
All right.
being a fun person in general.
Solid answer.
Go-to weapon in an apocalypse.
Well, see, I don't know what's gonna hurt these zombies. I don't know if I could like throw out some mustard gas out there, if this is gonna stop them. But a weapon would be just a straight up nuke. I'm just gonna decimate every single one. You guys are expecting like a Barrett M8A1 or something like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
nah.
Throw
I
the
wasn't
curve.
expecting.
I like it.
I think you need a kill streak before you get the nuke. But that'll work. All
What-
right, is that all?
All right, last one. We'll go with some wholesome content. I need dream date and dream woman.
God.
Oh,
Let the ladies know if they want to go to Pound Town.
all right. This switches all the time. I forget her name. She's the chick off of Star Trek, blonde. I think she's probably like upper 30s by now. She was on I think the second to last Star Trek movie they had.
Yeah,
The
pull
blonde
this up.
chick. No, the blonde British chick.
You pulling this up, Ben? Do you watch? I feel
I'm
like you
trying
watched.
to. I've never watched.
Oh, she's a babe.
Dude, she's sneaky sexy.
She actually looks
Interesting.
familiar. What?
She kind of looks like she'd be like an
Alice-
Austin Powers.
Alice
Yes.
Eve?
Yes,
Alice
Alice.
Eve.
Yes.
I think she is in an Austin Powers movie. Oh wait, no. This is I don't know. I've
Okay.
seen it before.
I didn't realize I had these up on the monitor. Oh my gosh.
It's just
Alright,
Alex.
those are some suggested pictures.
Just getting sucked down into the bikini rabbit hole.
Alright,
But,
so Alice Eve, where are you taking her? What's the dream evening with Alice Eve?
I forget the city in Italy it is, but it's on the Mediterranean where they have all the pretty like the super colorful buildings, and it's like like by the beach. I forget. I know the state or whatever they call it. Not a Providence. It's like Ling. It starts with an L. But yeah, that would be my favorite place. I think that's probably one of the coolest places on earth. Just have a nice little time, go get some real Italian food, and have myself a little glass of wine, and then spend the rest of the night with her.
Have your
Alice
have
Eve.
yourself a little
Take
bit
her
of
on a
Alice Eve.
gondola ride in Italy. I love it.
Okay.
All right. Good
All right.
stuff.
Okay. Pretty good stuff.
That's pretty good for we never did that before. I like
That
it.
was that. Some of those answers kind of threw me for a loop, but
Alex, you're a
you got
softer
some good
guy than
take, Alex.
I
I'm
realized.
impressed.
Yeah.
Some good takes.
Well, what do you think I was gonna say, Nick? Bring him out to the woods.
Yeah, pretty
Show 'em a
much.
good time mudding in my truck.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Hayfield, like a Luke Bryan song.
Oh
Because
my God,
country's your favorite genre. I thought you were gonna say country too.
that shit makes me cringe.
Anyway,
Thank you. All right, well
anyway, anyway.
let's go ahead and kind of jump into our first topic that we discussed. And amidst all the coronavirus shutdowns, a lot of people have been going stir crazy for multiple reasons. Obviously, being home, but we're living in a world without sports for the most part. I mean, we're slowly getting a little bit of stuff back, but kind of the cultural impact sports has is pretty apparent now that we don't have it. Right? It's like this hole in everybody's hearts. So. Um, Alex, you have a deep background in baseball, so do we want to go back into that right now, Nick, or how do you want to do this?
Well, let's just talk what we think. So, Alex, you were a college baseball player. There's no MLB season right now. You were deep into it. Like you were on the cusp of getting drafted last year. I would say that's very fair to say. What was it like? Has baseball changed for you as a spectator from now being done playing the sport to like when you were a kid growing up, like in the MLB?
Yeah, I would say it changed it a little bit, just in the aspect of knowing how much work and how much it takes to like actually get to the point of being, a professional baseball player and things like that. But also, I guess, knowing how bad, like some of the guys' lives in the minor leagues are. I'm sure you guys know a little bit that those guys don't get paid much, and they're working a lot of hours and not getting paid a lot, while the owners and ownerships of in MLB is basically screwing them over.
Yeah, so you almost see it more of like an appreciation side for what it takes to get up there, and that makes sense, kind of with your background in playing.
Yeah, like
For
I still have a love for the game. Sorry to cut you off, Nick. Like I
no, go
still
ahead.
I still appreciate the hell out of the game and love watching it and love every second of it. It's just now you get to see the side of, hey, some of these guys who work their ass off, you know what I mean, get drafted, and then they're still really not making it financially, which kind of sucks. You know what I mean? Because they put their heart and soul into something, and now you're still grinding, still grinding, still grinding. And I get it. But just from the standpoint of someone's dream, you know what I mean, goal to be something, and then you realize, oh, sometimes it's not all what it's cracked up to be. Is all I got to say on that.
Interesting. And I guess you can see, because if you would have, you were almost sucked into the gauntlet to where you probably played with some guys that you see now that are, well, even guys that are in the minors right now, they're not playing. They're not getting paid at all. I wouldn't think.
No,
And
and
it just totally changes.
I don't know. I didn't really get to look up too much about guys in the minors because I mean, obviously they don't talk about that. But like, actually today I was listening to a little. I forget his name. What's Phil Sims, or I think it was Phil Sims, or no. I always get him mixed up. Boomer Esiason on his podcast was talking a little bit with some guy in the MLB, and they were just talking a little bit about everything that's going on and how it's affecting, kind of minor leaguers and major leaguers, and how minor leaguers are the ones yet getting the shaft.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, it's been
What
which we were actually going to get into that too. Let's go ahead and get your take on that, and then we'll kind of continue to move into like minor league conversation. But so to preface this, obviously the season shut down. MLB isn't making money. Okay, so initially when they shut down, I think it was pretty much across the board. The players association, MLBPA, accepted a 30% pay cut because nobody knew what the season had in store. Obviously, teams are missing out on revenue, refunding tickets, all that. So now the MLB owners passed what will be a season, I believe, starting like second week of July is what they're aiming for. And the Players Association, so in the terms, the Players Association, the players have to take another pay cut, and I think it ranges from like 25 to 50%. already with that 30% subtracted, right? So significantly less money, obviously. But it's sparking a lot of debate among a lot of baseball players are talking about it, analysts are talking about it, fans are sounding off about it. So, give us a take, Alex.
Well, actually, I got to hear a little soundbite of Blake Snell talking about it. I think it was either today or yesterday. I don't quote me on that.
I think it was today. I know what
But
you're
when
talking about.
but when he was talking like playing for reduced pay like isn't worth it or whatever, I mean, I think that's generally what he was saying. I kind of agree with him in the sense that like if he gets injured in a year where he's not making a certain amount of money, that could affect any sort of any sort of goals or anything for like future pay. Like all these guys have incentive based pay, right? So if Blake Snell throws a certain amount of innings in his contract, he'll get a bonus, right? And if the team does well, they'll get a bonus, right? Well, then what happens with all those bonuses and everything when there's reduced tickets being sold? So that all gets factored into their pay. I guess I see the player side in that aspect where they're kind of concerned there, but also Blake Snell and I think some of these other guys got to think, what about everybody else in the world that like everybody else who's working for a business, a small business where they don't know right now, but they're unemployed, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess they just have to like look at it that way. Like it's everybody is struggling the same way. Like I don't care who it is, no matter what, everybody is having some sort of struggle right now. And for some of the players to be that way, I think it's kind of contradicting what I said before. Like, but they're still getting paid millions of dollars to play a game, and I understand that this might impact, their future chances of making possibly more money, and earning everything that they're earning this season. But I just think they got to look at it as like the world in a retrospect.
Yeah,
Yeah, or go
yeah,
ahead,
go
Nick.
ahead, Ben. Okay, I'll go ahead. But I get what you're saying. I totally see why they're trying to bargain for themselves, really, and just that's what it is. They're bargaining. They're trying to get more money. But what you said lastly about society as a whole, they're going through this too. So I think it's almost like if they want to, you don't want to put things on people, but if they kind of want to fit in with the society, and society needs baseball, right? Or they
Society
need
needs
something that's going
sports
to
right
bring them
now,
back
man.
together.
Something that just represents hope.
I agree with Ben 100% there. They need something to take their mind off of, every single bill that they're going to have to repay after this, and all the economic downturn that they're going to be going through, with income lowering and lowering for them and not knowing if they're going to have a job. They need something at least to, when it gets down to it, just to relax and take their mind off of it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much going on, right? Well, there's so much going on while there's actually nothing going on. Like everyone's so distracted. Like every single day, people are at night watching the news or reading headlines, and it brings people down worse than I think it really is. And even like 9/11, how many days did they have off of baseball in 9/11? I don't even think it was a week, but as soon as baseball did
Well,
come
the
back,
famous like Piazza, was it Piazza who ran with the American flag in New
No,
York, right?
that's Sammy Sosa in Chicago. He had a home
yeah,
run, and then his
Oh,
first base
Piazza
coach.
hit. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
Sosa was running around, and then like the George Bush throwing I think it was in the playoffs for a Yankees game. He threw the inaugural
Mhm.
first pitch. I think they need something like that. I guess just to bring everybody back together to try to get some nationalism because I feel like everything's divided by left or right now.
Yeah. The
absolutely.
disappointing thing too is from the ownership side or just kind of, head of the MLB commissioner type of side, like this is the best chance the MLB will ever have to get eyes on the MLB. Viewership has been downtrending for a long time for baseball. If they're the only sport out there, they're going to have a lot of freaking eyes. You know what I'm saying? So they should, whatever it takes to get a deal to get playing, and they should really, really value this time frame they have.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They really should do whatever they can to get people out there playing just for
So,
on so many levels.
yeah.
And like what Ben said, like they need to capitalize on this. Their viewing has been going down so much, and the NFL's taking over everything. And anything that the MLB loses, I feel like I don't know the real numbers, but I feel like viewership between the NFL, NBA, and MLB what was it like in the '90s, right? Baseball was the top. Now it's NBA is probably like what would you say
NBA,
twenty five
and I
to thirty
know
three percent of the market?
It's the highest
It's ahead
globally,
of
but in the
baseball. Yeah.
U.S., it's way above baseball. Baseball is low. Like baseball is
Yeah.
not that big of a deal anymore to the average American.
And that's what I'm saying. Like just taking advantage of the time where they have a time to pivot right now. Nothing's going on. Like just as a straight up business standpoint, as a business mindset, they have a chance to pivot. Maybe look towards rules changes. You know what I mean? Anything to speed the game up to make it more appealing to a younger eye.
Yeah, I mean, see, I'm personally not a huge rule change guy. Some things here and there. Like one thing is apparently in this new offering they're taking away any replay reviews, which I think is a big backtrack for baseball, and it will only be for the year, because it takes too long, which their reviews do take forever. But I just don't get why they don't have a monitor on the field and have the umps go look themselves so they're on the field instead of having the dudes in New York do it. You know what I mean? So they kind of shoot themselves in the foot sometimes when they're trying to slow the game or speed the game up. But
I agree there. But like what I'm even saying, like just allowing people to access some of their content because I knew that was like a big issue. Like
blackouts.
yeah, MLB wasn't
Yeah.
letting anybody access their like just YouTube videos and stuff like that, which is
Hmm.
dumb. Half how many kids do you think of the age 5 nowadays? I mean, hell, every little young kid can go and work a computer, work their phone, or their parents' phone or whatever, look up anything on YouTube and having any sort of just getting in front of people, getting more eyes to see it, and then that's going to help people. I mean, I guess in my point of view, get into the game. I feel like it's such a niche market now that they have to do something to market themselves better.
Yeah. Well, one thing I like about this, if they do want to capitalize this opportunity they have right now, is kind of compared to football and basketball. Football and basketball for the average fan are pretty general sports. And what I mean by that is if I'm a Lakers fan, I still know like what's going on with Kyrie in Brooklyn or what's going on, just
With KD's
whatever, right?
situation,
You
yeah.
yeah, you keep up with the game a lot more and you know players on other teams, right? You keep up with other teams. Baseball, I think, has gotten so localized that unless you're from a city with a team, and you're even a baseball fan, that like most Cardinals fans could not name two players on the Dodgers, Giants, and Padres. Like that's not, it compared to football where you'll have a Buccaneers fan that can list off the whole Chargers roster. You know what I'm saying? Like baseball's become
Yeah.
so localized, and this would be a good time while nobody has sports. Is if you're some kid in the middle of Iowa and you obviously don't have a major league team, it's they might get into it because it's the only thing on TV. So they'll find a team somewhere around the country, or even if it's something close like the Cubs, whatever. But if you're some dude in Idaho, whatever's on TV, that might be a team you stick with for the rest of your life and actually enjoy baseball. So it goes down to getting eyes on the content, kind of like you said. But
I think speaking on that point, there's a good opportunity that the MLB has. I think a lot. You said that teams can't or fans can't name other players from other teams, and I think a lot of what that has to do with there's a Cardinal game on every night at 7
yeah,
p.m. every night. So
yeah,
when are they ever going to watch another team play?
that's
And
true.
I think that might be a part of why it's so localized, and that can be good in a sense and bad in another. Like in a place like St. Louis, I would almost say it's good because it's such a sense of community. There's always something to talk about, and that's kind of what's lacking right now. But say that they do play these games with no fans. They're talking about playing them in Arizona at their home fields, whatever, wherever it is. If they stagger times of games too, while people are at home doing nothing, say they have a noon game, a 3 game, and a 6 game, kind of just
That'd be
like the
dope.
NFL would do on a Sunday,
That
all
would be
on
cool.
national TV because there's nothing else to play on national TV.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, honestly. And like just to spin off of that, like I think the biggest thing that they're running into is they don't have like their biggest face in baseball. I've heard this talked to about a million times. How many kids know who Mike Trout is compared to LeBron James?
Very few.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And Mike Trout is on pace to be one of the, if not the best baseball player, right? I mean, it's a big if he keeps going the way he is. But to start his career, he started his career better than any player has started their career. And I feel like they're not doing a good enough job getting, and they've been trying, I know, to try to highlight their big names and their big stars from all over. That's why they try to take a guy from one team and a guy from another team. But they have such a young crop of good players, like especially if you want to look at it, like good outfielders. You have Ronald Acuna, you have Bryce Harper, huge name. You have Mike Trout. there's guys all over the place in all demographics of the United States. Baseball needs to get rid of that regionalized look. Like, and I agree with you 100%, Ben. I just don't know how they would attack it.
Yeah. Well, kind of going off your point there, I mean, it even comes down to their social media presence. Like I follow like, MLB Cut 4, a few others on Twitter and things like that. And they just I don't know how in this day and age with how much of a big entity the MLB is that their social media presence is honestly terrible. Even a lot of teams, honestly just terrible. I mean, literally anytime it could even be a player that's not necessarily the biggest. We'll say like Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook hits a really nice three or dunks. You will see that everywhere on your timeline on Twitter, like right after it happens. And MLB just doesn't have that. If you're seeing any cool highlights, it's always like a week after. Like they're just not on their game. So that's a big problem too.
No,
It just doesn't seem right out of one of the four major sports. And I think that's almost just their brand in general. It's just slow paced. And here's the question: is baseball just boring? Like, is it just boring for people now? Do people not like baseball, even no matter which way you dress it? If you speed up the game 30 minutes, like, are people always going to lean toward football and basketball now just because it's maybe a faster paced world?
Can I comment on that, or do you want to start, Alex?
no, I was gonna say you can comment on it. I was just gonna ask a question. Like, are people just not as intelligent and watching more of a like I'm just being serious, like watching more of a tactical based game, like where it's more of a
Yeah.
mental battle, I would say.
See, well that's a good point. I'll respond to that in a second, but first, the thing is, especially Manfred, his whole vendetta since he came in has been, speed up the game, speed up the game. And now we have rules like, where relievers have to pitch to three batters, things like that. And I hate that because I've obviously grown up in St. Louis. Huge Tony La Russa fan, one of the best ever managed a bullpen, that type of stuff. Like, there's an
Best
art to that,
NL
right? That's part
manager,
of the tactical game.
best NL
Um,
manager ever, I would say, in the sense of just knowing how to work a bullpen and work around having a pitcher hit. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Um, the thing is, I truly think this though. It comes down to one, the environment of parks, two, kind of the social media presence, mainstream presence, right? And three, if games were 30 minutes shorter across the board, I honestly don't think that would have as big of an impact as Manfred thinks on new fans. I really don't. If you don't like baseball now at 3 hours, I don't think you're gonna care if it's 2.5. So I mean that's just my take, but
I agree.
I think the same thing. I just don't know how they're going to do it aside of marketing themselves on social media better just to try to get a bigger footprint in the game.
yeah.
It's just too small right now.
Yeah, and it comes down also just to marketing individual athletes, like just getting names out there. Some way, even if it's having, mic'd up games like they were doing in spring training or just stuff like that. There's just a lot of players that you just don't know much about them. Even some of the primetime guys, they're just not big interview. They don't have a big interview presence. You don't get a lot of info online. Like, like LeBron's speaking on something every other day. Just guys like that. That's why they're household names. So
Like the MLB doesn't have a Terrell Owens, they don't have a Chad Ochocinco. I feel like they're kind of missing kind of like a little bit of a bad boy mentality. Something that's
yeah,
gonna draw a little bit of a, I don't know, some sort of reaction out of people.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and there were a few players who would do stuff like that, and then they'd get plunked with a pitch, and you don't
Yeah,
really want to do
yeah,
the game police itself, and maybe even too much to take personality out of it. You can argue either way,
yeah.
but
100%.
that's probably another element of it.
So before we get off the baseball topic completely, I'm just gonna kind of paraphrase his quote. But Mark Teixeira the other day, going back to pay, was saying that he would be willing to make pennies on the dollar to one, get to play baseball, and two, to give people hope. That was kind of the gist of the quote, right? And he, for reference, made over I think 200 million in his career, so he obviously did well on the pay scale. And
Played for
he's
the Yankees.
played, yeah, Rangers, Yankees, Angels, all that good stuff. So,
Big markets.
um, let's get a take on that because he's gotten a lot of flack for that. And I mean, just before we get on, I agree, but let's go ahead and hear what you guys have to say here.
Nick, you go first.
I agree with him. I did see his quote, and the way he said his quote, I think it was a tweet, right?
Yeah, I think he tweeted it.
It
Something
made
like
no
that.
sense the way he worded it because I saw it and I could not understand what he was trying to say. First of all, second of all, I think you can say a player doesn't want to play, like they can strike. They don't have to play. They're going to move someone up though. I think unless it's the whole CBA as a whole shuts it down, the MLB is bigger than a player like the Snell guy who's saying he wouldn't play. He's one of the only people that have spoken out that I have seen. Is that accurate? The
Him
more
and Trevor
players.
Bauer have both been really
I
talking
hate
about it, but
Trevor Bauer.
they're both big social media presences.
I know people love Trevor Bauer, but he's too loud for me. I'm
I
just not
like
a
him.
fan.
I mean, I think he's the first guy in a long time that's really ever been loud. So I think just that is a good thing. But he has some really good takes. He has some really bad takes. He's kind of down the
I'm
middle.
I'm kind of with Ben. Like I like the fact that he actually opens up and actually speaks about certain topics. Where I feel like a lot of MLB players won't even dive into anything. They're just too in their own little world. Like they just don't care. But most of his takes, I would probably shy against a little bit. Just seeing his temper tantrums on the field, I feel like he's not one of those people that can, I don't know, really cultivate a crowd and like get a lot of people to back what he's saying.
Yeah.
I
But
wonder how respected he is by his peers.
I feel like he's
I
not
think he
because
is.
I feel like
Well, go
he's
for
a
it.
very yin yang. Okay, so I feel like there's a lot of guys who are like on his back and stuff. I feel like there's just a lot of guys who don't like him. Like after the whole throwing the ball over center field and acting like, excuse my French, like a little you know what out there, like a little bitch. Let's be honest. He threw a big temper tantrum and launched the
Really?
ball over the fence and like stormed off the mound and just made himself look like a complete asshole. To be honest with you. I feel like that hurts like a lot of the traditional baseball look. Where
Yeah, it's hard to be the new age when you're acting
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. I mean, again, it comes down to, is that a net positive for the MLB? I'm not saying that he should have done that, but that actually like did go everywhere. That was on social media. It was all over Sports Center that day, all that type of stuff. So it's kind of a
yes, I
blessing
think
and a
it's good.
curse. Like we do need that type of emotion, but maybe not. He didn't channel it properly.
100%, 100%. I agree. Any marketing for the MLB, they can take. I mean, anything they can get, they should take. Right?
Anything.
So
I
going back to Snell though, I get what he's trying to say because, he's talking about just, Alex, you talked about like contract incentives if he gets hurt, whatever. But the alternative right now, if they don't play, I mean, some guys have a certain amount of guaranteed money, but the MLB has more power than the Players Association, and they'll figure out a way to just pause pay or something because they're not going to be paying guys 70% of their contracts if they don't have a season. It's not feasible. And very rarely do I side with the owners because I think the Cardinals owner, for example, the Witt family are cheapskates, and a lot of people are not fans of them anymore. But there's a lot of teams that barely scrape by. There's probably a very, very, I'd say of any major sport, there's a huge income discrepancy in the MLB. If you look at the Dodgers, Yankees, and then compare the Pirates, Mariners, Orioles, I mean, you have a Garrett Cole, a single guy. Just his yearly salary is pretty much the whole Pirates organization salary for the year. So, there are plenty of teams when they're not selling their minimum amount of tickets anyways, because ballparks are empty. Like, how are they supposed to pay guys at the end of the day? So, I don't know if I mean, maybe a lot of the players are just used to being wealthy at this point and don't understand the logistics behind it. But if you're not selling tickets, there's not money to pay these guys for the most part.
That's a good point.
It,
Go
it-
ahead, Alex.
and like to spin off of that a little bit, like the Kansas City, whatchamacallit, the Royals. Okay, so the Royals, they're relevant for how long? They won a World Series. They lost in a World Series. How do they even fill the seats then after that? After every single player that they brought up through the minors made strategic, you know what I mean? Made strategic moves as a GM. All those guys ended up producing on the big stage, right? One of the smallest market teams in the MLB make it to the big stage. They beat one of the highest markets teams. I think they lost to the Giants, and then who did they beat? Nick, can you remember? I think it was 2015.
No, it wasn't. I don't know who it was.
They lost the Giants, and then they beat the. Am I crazy or was it the Mets? Was it the Mets?
I think it. What is the Mets are in the NL? Yeah, I think it was the Mets.
Yeah, I think so
see.
too. But I guess what I'm saying is like I feel like some sort of
Yeah, it was the Mets.
a way to make baseball more competitive, whether that be a salary cap or just some sort of a way where the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Cubs, they can't just dominate every big free agency signing by just throwing the most amount of money at XYZ guys, just to load their team. Because then there's so many teams, like the Brewers. Nick and I are from Wisconsin. The Brewers have what? I think they're in the bottom.
They're like number like 22 in like
Yeah.
payroll.
I was going to say, I think they're in the bottom third in payroll. So how the hell are the Brewers supposed to put together a 10-year plan? You know what I mean? All those small market teams are just banking on the way KC did it. They're banking on their 1, 2, 3-year stint where they have to go all in free agency. They have to try to make big trade acquisitions to win. And then that's it. Then they're completely depleted. They're stuck in contracts where they can't sign anybody else. So I think that's the only place in baseball where I think there's got to be some sort of a change to make it where it's like more like the NFL. I mean, regardless for just bad ownership in the NFL, if you have good ownership, any team has the chance to win every given year. What was it? Like I think there's almost half the playoff teams from 2018 didn't make it into the 2019 NFL playoffs. Like that's insane. The MLB every single year, you could probably, I don't know the true statistics of it, but I feel like it's always the same teams are in the playoffs every year.
Yeah, save for a few
Close to
wild
it,
cards.
yeah.
And MLB's just killing themselves by not having a salary cap. Like, what? I want to know logic behind that. That is such a ridiculous even thought that they wouldn't have one, and it's been that way. And I feel like it's getting more and more drastic every year. I don't know the history of it, but how can you expect to have a competitive sports league when you have teams literally quadrupling other teams in payroll? And I think a large part of it is just that baseball is baseball. Like, you can be the worst team in the league and you're going to win a third of your games. Like, it's just a very chancy sport, really. Like, can you disagree with that? Like, how can
No,
you?
you're right.
You're 100% right.
There's such a vast sample size of games you're playing that, yeah, there's a lot of one-day wonders, and worst teams are still going to win 50, 60 games. So
That just shows like the gap. That's like there's not a whole lot of a gap between the best and the worst players in the MLB. Like maybe take away like the 10 best and the 10 worst, and like the people in the middle there, like they're not, they're quality players. They're all, and then I'm sure it's that way through the minor leagues too. Like there's not a huge difference.
Well, the thing with the salary cap, like I'm all for it. It should be a set salary cap. If you go over it, you don't play. Like that's kind of how NFL does it. But it's just we've gotten to the point where we have this salary cap, right? We have the luxury tax or whatever if you go over. But the Dodgers, Yankees, etc. do not care. They make so much money. They're such big market teams. It literally is pocket change to them paying the tax. So that's the current problem because I mean, I'm a huge A's and Rays fan. They're my two favorite teams outside the Cardinals because I love the scrappiness of their teams. They always put good teams together, just have a bunch of grinders on their teams, right? And they do it with no money. Imagine if those teams, those front offices had $250 million to spend in a year. Those teams, literally the A's and Rays would be the best teams in baseball. I'm totally convinced. But it's just, yeah, they really have to figure it out. And hopefully, because the CBA is being renegotiated, it was supposed to be after this season. I don't know if it gets pushed back now, but they're gonna have to figure that out because
There's
so
going to be
many
a strike.
markets in the MLB. It's weighing the MLB itself down. The Orioles having 2,000 fans a night is not gonna cut it anymore. They have to. Orioles, Mariners, Pirates. There's a bunch.
Miami.
Of franchises.
Miami, dude.
Yeah.
They're in one of the largest cities in the United States, and they can't fill a brand new stadium up. You know what I'm saying? And they won a World Series. What was it? 04?
2 World Series. Was
it
01 and 03 or something like, or maybe it was 99 and 03. Let me see.
And they couldn't keep Miguel Cabrera, one of the biggest faces in baseball in the time span after that. They had a young, great player, right? They lose him to free agency just because they can't afford him. Like, they know they just strictly can't afford teams. And then you have teams like, I love the Brewers. I'm a Brewers fan. But they signed Ryan Braun, someone like Ryan Braun, right? You think it's a good move, and then one bad move for these teams, especially the lower market teams that can't pay as much, they're screwed. They can't pay the luxury
Davis
tax.
in Baltimore.
What'd you say?
That's true.
Look at Chris Davis in Baltimore. He got a huge contract, and he literally was like, what, over 50, 100? I don't know what it was.
Something. Was it last year or the year before?
I think
By
it
the
was
way,
last year.
Marlins 97 and 2003 are the World
Okay.
Series
Close.
championships. So it's I don't know. I mean, the one thing the MLB needs to realize what their fan base looks like. And first off, Tampa needs to be moved. Athletics need to be moved. If they're not in a new stadium within 2 years, the MLB's got to drop the hammer and just move the franchises because the Oakland and Tampa are the cities are doing nothing to help their teams. They got to get new stadiums. And they need to be smaller stadiums. The days of baseball stadiums being 45,000 seats plus. I mean, some of these smaller markets build a nice $25,000 park that's just a dope place to hang out. That's what they're gonna have to do because if you have some big ass park, man, and half of it's empty, even if you have 25,000 people there, but it's a 45,000 seater, it just looks bad. It looks bad for your image. It looks bad for the MLB. It looks terrible on TV. They got to figure that out.
I mean, it just looks dumb on TV. Like when I watch a Marlins game, I'm just like, this is embarrassing for the sport of baseball.
Well, their stadium is embarrassing to the sport of the baseball. What the hell were they
True.
thinking building
That
that
was
thing? That is the ugliest, probably, figure in architecture in the world.
They took the thing on the center field out, right? I'm pretty sure they did.
The place is still lime green.
Yeah,
Well, what's funny too is that's
and orange.
actually an open and closable roof, right? A retractable roof, and they
Yes.
never open it. It actually looks kind of nice when it's open. It looks like a nice spot, but they literally open it. I think it's like 2 games a year, which I don't understand that. But
So
why
it's
even build the
90 and humid
retractable roof
out.
at that point?
I don't know, man. Baseball's killing itself. That's what I think. but-
Yeah.
Eating itself.
As a big baseball fan too and like big card guy, it's sad because a lot of baseball cards now literally in the image of every card there's empty seats behind the player and it sucks. It makes baseball cards look worse too and that's one of my favorite things in the world.
But like, so baseball at its peak, right? Like baseball at its absolute peak was the home run race, and then all of a sudden it gets shit on, pardon my French, because of the steroid era. You know, everybody's Roger Clemens, one of the big power pitcher. You know, 6'4", 240-pound donkey throwing 100. He gets, he's taking steroids. Sammy Sosa, Jose Canseco, Mark McGuire, Barry Bonds.
McGuire.
You know what I'm saying? All that.
Yeah, that was when it was its best, was when everyone was hitting home runs.
Well, it even gets into because a lot of people think the balls have been juiced the last few years.
They have
I
been, by the
mean,
way.
what'd you say they have been?
Yeah, that's proven. They have been. I talked
Yeah.
so
It was a
my
manufacturing incident or whatever Manfred wanted to say.
yeah, that's 100% BS. So
Yeah.
my head coach in college, his dad, and I talked to his dad probably 2 or 3 times a year, and I just asked him. I said, like, what happens? He's the third base coach for the Royals, Jersley, and he just said they'll get notes, like the balls will change multiple times a year, and it'll just say we're changing the balls because of blah 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 blah. And it's just a load of shit, to be honest with you. And everybody knew at the time. Anybody that's really in baseball knew that something was happening with the balls.
Well, when you hit a baseball every day of your life for 30 years and then all of a sudden they start going a little further and they had to have known and they do. I just don't get how things like that stay quiet. Like, I guess that's not official news that has happened, but obviously like from the inside.
Yeah. I think the MLB is so good, and this is one of their problems, but I think Manfred especially is so good at there has to be some sort of underlying threats from keeping dudes from talking. I mean, when Verlander came out and started, which I hate Verlander now, but when he started talking about the balls being juiced, man, that conversation got quiet really fast. So he was probably told, like, you're out of the league, you're going to shut up, or you're out if you keep talking. Something stupid. But, I mean, it's the same thing with the Astros, though, that the MLB made sure that we went from all guys on social media commenting on the Astros to when spring training started, that was like gone. After the Carlos Correa interview where he said like "F you" to Cody Bellinger, all the talk was gone after that from players. So I think it's a big MLB thing that they try to keep everybody quiet.
I agree. So, what else you boys want to talk about?
Yeah, we can get off the baseball. Let's transition into, well, I guess
It's just
kind of
pissing me off.
related, but let's get into the LA shutdown and kind of the implications of it. So, Los Angeles County, right? It's not just so the county. I guess the city's in the county. I don't know how it works there, but So they said with all certainty they will have their lockdown at least through July 1st, but the LA Times article says that most politicians are pretty confident it will be past August 1st. Okay.
Yes.
So obviously that affects baseball because Dodgers, Angels, whatever, but we don't need to get into that. But I don't know. Where do we want to start with this? One, I think it's insane, like absolutely insane. At some point, you're literally gonna have people rioting. Like you really are, because you have a right to do whatever the hell you want. You can go outside. That's your human right in this country. Um, Two, interestingly enough, all the House of Reps seats right now, there was just a Republican that won a district like 2 nights ago. That's been an incumbent Democrat spot for a long time in California. So that's saying something. It was a kind of a Democratic county, but or area. And Republicans are polling like literally wiping the House of Rep races in California right now. Which, if they turn out to win, that is never. I mean, it hasn't been seen in California in a long time. So I think it shows how many people are pissed off there. But yeah, okay, just a little bit to preface it. Let's get some takes.
Well, for one, like you said, people have rights, and this isn't going to go on forever. Like Alex, you saw this in Wisconsin just now. I don't know if you saw the news, Ben, but the Governor Evers or whatever had a shutdown in the state until I think the 26th of May, and then what's the term? Is it the Supreme Court of the state or
Yeah, the Supreme Court of the state.
Yeah, they just overturned it in a 4-3 vote the other night. So like literally effective immediately, the stay-at-home order is off. All the bars were open. Like I don't know what percentage of people were actually going and doing stuff right away. I feel like there was a decent community.
I saw a picture. I saw an article about Wisconsin bars earlier, and there were some pretty packed bars. But
So,
I mean,
like,
those could be outliers.
I don't know if any of you St. Louis folk get to see the statistics about Wisconsin, but I think the bars were pretty packed, Nick, just being around here. I mean, I didn't go, but I've had multiple people to like just absolutely raging, and I've seen a lot of stuff on social media about people going nuts.
that's so crazy to me. Like, while I think that this is getting overblown and we eventually need to let people out, like, that really just seems like an idiotic thing to do. Like the next night after it gets lifted to go and like get in like packed bars. I get it, and I know that the thing that I don't get is I think people. Why are we developing a vaccine that's not going to be ready for a year or two? If they're saying everywhere you hear is different. Some say 3 months, some say 2 years. Is there only one coronavirus? Like, are people just going to get it and then be immune to it? Like, it's
So
not going to take that long for everyone to get it.
there are multiple strands, but there's only one considered deadly strand right now. A lot of people think it will mutate, and there will eventually be other deadly strands.
Just like other
That takes
sicknesses.
time though, but that's just like the flu. I mean, there's multiple strands of the flu that you don't want. So,
Like with
go
the
ahead, Alex.
so like not to get like just trying to go back to the LA thing. Like when is it going to hurt people so much economically that they just get so pissed off that they're literally infringing upon the freedoms, the rights that they have to, go out and make money for themselves? When are people going to like get that desperate where shit's gonna have to change in California? That is one place where I don't understand the thinking.
There are, I mean, if you look at it kind of from a macro point of view, the whole country's already at that point. We should have been open a long time ago. This shouldn't have been longer than 2 weeks. But I mean, California, if I'm not mistaken, they produce the largest amount of GDP towards the U.S., right, of any state. They're gonna go from 1 to like 30 really freaking fast if everywhere else is open. I mean, the homelessness rate there is already the highest of any state. Them in Washington, it's going to be insane. And a lot of it's not those people's fault. When you're taken out of your job for 5 freaking months, I don't know what else you can do.
I think we had like when we talked about this almost 2 months ago, Ben, I think we had a really quick window of where things were going to be all right if they opened up. Like I thought mid-May, maybe by June 1st. But if states follow suit with California, which I don't know that if they will, like seeing like a
New
state
York,
that
I don't even think New York will. But
New York, they're already opening stuff in the city.
Yeah, well, it's a
There's
very
phases.
very
There's a lot
slow
of phases.
rollout for New York. But yeah, May 15th actually is their first day tomorrow, technically, in New York City.
Which I think is a very proactive look at it. Like when is the economic downturn, the homeless rate, people just straight up starving? When is that death toll and like just putting people out of their homes going to reach the point where it's 3 times as bad as the coronavirus deaths.
Yeah.
That's a
Well,
good point.
and what's
Go ahead,
funny
Nick.
is, and Nick, you might remember this, but I've talked about this for a while, okay? Because historically, in any economic downturn, I mean, you can look at '08 numbers if you want, I guess, a recent reference, but suicides go way up, crime goes way up, homelessness goes way up, drug use goes way up, alcohol use goes way up, abusive home relationships goes way up. I mean, those lives affected do not justify the amount of deaths we've had at all. We're already at it's like 33 million unemployed, and those jobs, half of them ain't coming back, or it's going to take a while. Like, we've reset hard. And Nick
100%.
and I have talked about that. We don't need to get into that conversation too deep, but at first, I get the closing because we didn't know what we were up against. We were behind it. The whole world had no warning, right? The World Health Organization in China sold everybody out, and that's a fact. That's not even disputable. Um, so yeah, I mean, a week or two, we need to know what we were up against. We obviously didn't have the hospital capacity or medical supply capacity to keep up. But after that, the numbers are so skewed, and you probably watched Elon talk about this, Alex, or maybe remember hearing about it in his last Joe Rogan appearance. But you do not have to have a COVID-19 test to be diagnosed with COVID, because
You
how
could
the stimulus package works, hospitals get X amount of funding per COVID case, they get X amount of funding per ventilator use. Okay, so hospitals are in a tough situation across the country. I'm not saying, if I was running a hospital, this would be a tough moral situation. I'm not saying it's right or wrong what they're doing, but um, you have this instance where they can't run any elective surgeries or their normal day to day, right? It's only COVID, 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 COVID for the most part. So when your hospital's mostly empty and you don't have money and you got to start laying off your staff or cutting nurses or things like that, it's tough in the administrator's point of view to not fudge the numbers and say this dude's coughing, that's a symptom of COVID, we're going to write him off, right? That's $5,000. This dude, his lungs are, they're a little weaker than a normal person, we're going to throw him on a ventilator for literally 30 seconds and write him off for $39,000, right? So the numbers are so far beyond skewed that, because initial projections, people were saying if everybody got it, 2% would die, right? We're way under that. We're way under 0.5% at this point. If everybody got it today, and I'm fully convinced of that. But go ahead.
No, Nick, you got her. Like,
Nick.
or like, even on the Elon thing, like, I listened to his whole situation, and basically the funny thing to me is he's like, some dude could have a cough, go surfing, get eaten by a shark, get brought to the hospital, and they're
COVID
marking
death.
that down as a COVID death.
Yeah.
I think that's just like asinine to me.
Have you guys
Go ahead, Nick.
seen the I don't even know if this is legit at all. I watched it. The Plandemic documentary on YouTube. Have either of you seen that?
I have not.
It's basically this like female scientist who's kind of been like banished from the medical community. She did a lot of research on like
I heard about this
pandemics back in the day. But yeah, so she got arrested several years ago for like allegedly stealing things out of like a lab and doing all this like weird conspiracy type stuff. And she's basically trying to expose the whole medical industry over COVID. And what's his name? Fauci, the advisor of President Trump, saying that he's crooked and he's teamed up with Bill Gates and his foundation, trying to get everyone to get vaccine. With, that. And eventually with that, they're all we'll have all microchips in us and, end of the world type stuff, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that makes me think about. Like this, it kind of all starts to delve into conspiracy type stuff when you're like beefing up the numbers. And I'm not one to I took that all with a grain of salt, but I know it's a possibility that some of that's valid. Yeah. That this is all I really do think that this isn't a stunt, but this is really being blown up to promote certain agendas. I think for the left and the right.
If this was not an elective year or election year, we would not nearly have. If this happened 3 years ago in Trump's, first, second year of his term, this would be a way different story. Or if Trump wasn't in office, if this was Obama in office right now, we would not be hearing about this.
How many $1 trillion would we have given away already?
I agree 100%. Like, and like to go off of like Ben's, I think that, and Nick's, like to agree with both of you, I think that certainly like maybe there wasn't like a master plan, but people are leveraging this to use for their political agendas and try to push their political views on certain parts of people just to get a vote. Like, there's no way you can convince me that they're not. And even financial benefit from it in an unethical standpoint, either politically or if some companies are trying to produce some sort of vaccination or anything like that. I think it's wrong, first of all, and I think
Yeah.
probably there is some sort of that going on.
I mean, I think there's a lot of it going on under the table, and even like it comes down to obviously the Democratic platform now is more liberal, um, and they've been pushing UBI for a while, universal basic income.
Dumbest
I
thing.
mean, this is the first stunt we're getting for that. They're wanting. We already have another stimulus package proposed, and Mitch McConnell said earlier that he definitely thinks we'll get a second one, not on their terms that they just put out, but we're getting to that point where it's making people reliant on you, right? Nobody has a job, so they're going to accept your free money, and then the goal is they vote for you. Okay, so and it goes down to the Democrats since this first started back in March. We're immediately pushing mail-in voting. Like we're going to have mail-in voting in plan for this, right? So they're trying to lock everything down as long as they can, because even if a couple states are locked, they can lobby for the mail-in voting. And what they want is literally a yes or no card, like with no info on it. So the amount of those that could be faked are insane.
And
So I think there's a lot of underlying storylines here personally, but
and I guess I agree with you. And my thing is like, I feel like they want people to stay home. They want people to watch the news and things like that, so they can push their agendas easier. I
yep.
think when people have stuff going on, when people have sports, what is the percentage of, like, would you say 20 or 18 to 25-year-old Americans that actually stay current with current events, political issues, the news, things that are like even
Yeah.
local governments and things like that? Now they have the chance to just flood the airways, flood your TV with any sort of, I don't want to say propaganda because that sounds bad, but that's really what it is to
Oh
get you
yeah.
just to think a certain way, which I
Yeah.
think is unethical. I don't know what you think, Nick. We talked about this a while back, and I just think
Yeah, well, totally. Like even me, like before this all started, like I would check the stock market. I'd go on CNBC, see if there's any big news, probably every day. But I probably spend an hour a day now reading news headlines just because one, there's nothing else to do, and two, it's very interesting. But what you don't realize, if you start to see the same angled articles and types of news that's put out, it changes your thinking really fast. And I think it takes like a strong mind to be able to read something objectively and not absorb it as
Yeah.
opinion. And that's
Yeah.
even Alex and I were talking about this the other day when we were texting, was just like, even just when people like watch a YouTube video or listen to a podcast, if they see someone they trust or respect, if they have an opinion and they haven't taken the time or energy to really flush out what they believe about something, they're just going to adopt, they're just going to suck their opinion or their take on something and take it as their own. So this is
Mhm.
like, for how uneducated our generation is too, I would say, like, not even necessarily a generation, but say 18 to 25, kind of the range that we fall in, where we're kind of looking to get with robot mentality. If you're not looking for it, you could easily be influenced by anything you hear, and it happens to so many
Yeah.
people.
Well, it just goes the demographic you just mentioned are mostly Bernie supporters, so that kind of, I mean, it's the sheep mentality, and it's a lot of people. Which you could be a Bernie supporter and be perfectly intelligent. That's not what I'm trying to say, but it's just a lot of people our age are more for like instead of individualism, very identifying with a group type of thing. I guess
and
you could
that's
say.
what's wrong. Even with, like, I could go days and days. I agree with you guys so much, and like, just when you're growing up and you're pushed, like an ideology upon you, and you're not in today's day and age, you're not taught how to think freely, like to get your
Yeah.
own opinions on something, to research something yourself, to have just to be able to say, well, if someone asks you, well, what do you think about this? Oh, well, I really don't know. I feel like people, and like, the most refreshing thing in their mind, the most fresh thing that they just heard, the first
What they
news
go
article
to.
they saw, that's the first thing they grab onto, just like a trailer. They just attach onto something, and that's what they're locked onto in any sort of conversation with anybody. I think that's the dumbest thing, in my opinion, to do. And
It's okay to say I don't know. I think a lot of people don't realize that. But
That's
sorry,
what
I didn't mean
people
to cut
don't
you off.
do.
no,
Do
you're
you have more thought
100%
on
right.
that? So what I was thinking, like, I think this is kids in general, but I feel like certain ways that you're brought up can influence it. Like,
Oh yeah.
Alex and I, we were both raised in a small town, so there's that edge. Ben, you were homeschooled in high school, so I'm sure that has an effect on some things. But instead of saying I don't like, it's fully fine to say you don't know something, but we're trained to just adopt our parents' worldviews,
Hmm.
and not even a worldview is a bigger topic than it really. Even just like down to the smallest preferences, like whether it's music. If you ask a 12-year-old what their favorite music is, it's probably what their parents listen to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, at what point? I think
Pop
right
country.
now,
What?
right now is like a really formative age for us, even though we're not kids anymore. This is kind of when you get outside. Maybe you're moved out from your parents, or you spend time at college, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You got to start taking responsibility and like um, taking action on like forming your own thoughts and opinions. I think
Hmm.
this is, I mean, that's really the message I would say of robot mentality. Wouldn't you say? Is
Yeah.
just
Don't be a
like that,
sheep.
to be open thinking, and like I'm totally open to any differing ideas to me if you can
Yeah.
articulate it, and I'm
Yeah.
not able to articulate everything either.
Well,
But
sadly,
yeah,
that's a lot of the problem. And just going back to what Alex said, where the news creating such a rage in people. Like, I I thought 2016 was the most politically divided we ever be during that run, but I definitely think it's right now through all this. Like, for example, um, we have a gym owner in Chesterfield. He owns a gym called House of Pain, right? He opened against St. Louis's rules. Alex, Nick, you already know about this.
hmm
And so the people that want you to stay inside to save lives, right, are sending this guy death threats. He's made video of he's been talking about all the death threats he's getting, all the hate. So it's like that doesn't equate. If you want people to stay inside to save them, yet you're willing to kill this guy, like you know what I'm saying? It's just such a rage driven society we have right now. Nobody can just chill or accept that the dude's a business owner and he's gonna lose his business if it's not open. That's why he's open. So it's just that type of stuff. Just gets out of hand. You can disagree with somebody or not like what they're doing, not wanting to kill them.
yeah, I think you make a good point. That this well, times like this cause very irrational people. We all know that, but I think to
Separates the
this
men from the
point,
boys.
Absolutely.
I think to this point we have been pretty united. I mean, if you think about it, we have a Republican president who signed a $3 trillion relief bill. Like
Yeah,
we pretty much everything has been unanimous to this point, but now once reopening's hitting, this is when we're really starting to hit some rocky things where differing topics are going to come into play, and then we're gonna be having presidential debates very soon here, and that's going to get dicey. And then there's an election that's going to happen. And I mean, the way we're saying this is still going to be a thing in the fall.
yeah,
Um,
and it's pretty much inevitable. It's just gonna be
Summer
like
can
the flu. It's just gonna exist. So
just I don't know. I'm
well,
not
the
a doctor.
thing, going back to what you said about unification, we were very united, and a lot of people were skeptical about any shutdown, myself included. Um, because if you really dug deep, we kind of already knew the affected parties of this, right? But you know, we were all kind of okay with the 2 week thing. Both sides out. That's what we were told, right? Just 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 14 days. So it started from the narrative was flatten the curve, and then we've gotten to the point where we won't reopen if it's one more death. That's what California's saying. That's
Or
the vibe
vaccination
Biden's
or
been
something or
pushing.
some sort of a or yeah, I was reading all about that too. Like their whole slogan is like how many times they've changed their stance is ridiculous.
So, but the thing is, and okay, I realize that this can't directly be compared to the flu. They're different. The flu infects a ton of people, you know, kills only a small percentage. But same with COVID, relatively. Outside of deaths of, you know, somebody, like you said, dying of a heart attack and it's a COVID death, right, for funding purposes. Or just people that were already in rough shape and this exposed it. So, like Elon was saying on Joe Rogan's podcast, it's how many people really died from COVID and how many people got something exposed that was wrong with them from COVID. So there's a difference there. But we just going to the one more death thing, like that's just not feasible. There are people, you know, people die from the flu every single day.
How
So
many how
why are we
many
allowed to go outside then if we're doing the one more death game? You know,
how
I on a 10-minute drive to my gym, I have a very good shot to get in a car accident and die. Way higher than is dying from the COVID or the flu, right? So this whole one more death narrative is not feasible in any way, shape, or form. People die every day. That is human life. That's how life will always work.
No, and it's like how many of those deaths, like how many flu like deaths from nursing homes are being counted as COVID deaths, and
Yeah.
are they even counting, like how often were they even counting that the fact of a person in a nursing home dies from the flu, right? In the
Mhm.
past, do we even have accurate statistics to prove those numbers? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like everything's so skewed, and you have to almost discredit three-quarters of the stats you're being given because it's just like, well,
Yeah.
you get to dive deep and you don't know what it is. And I feel like that's like every person who I guess does their own research and digs into it a little bit realizes that, and then everybody's kind of frantic, like, well, then what do you believe? And I
Yeah.
think that's even like one of the biggest things that's going on right now. Like, what do people listen to? And that's dangerous. I think that's really dangerous right now because then it's giving other people credibility that they should not have, right?
Yeah. Well, Fauci for one, but besides that, Cuomo, big genius Cuomo, which at the start he handled it okay. I was fine with what he was doing, but he's derailed very fast with what he's doing in New York. But for example, how skewed are the death numbers? With it seems like every day they're counting up deaths they missed from nursing homes because Cuomo signed off that sick patients could be thrown in nursing homes, right? Like what? That was the worst idea we've ever seen. First off, and he's killed easily 10,000 people just from that. But um, yeah, it
I mean,
just gets to this point where the average death age as of a week ago was freaking almost a life expectancy. So like within a
What, like
year of
75?
75, right?
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
going back to initial New York numbers, when we were 3 weeks in, literally 80% of deaths had a pre-existing condition or were suspected to have a pre-existing condition. And of that number, the majority of them were over 65 for the most part. The outliers were people that died at 25 even with pre-existing conditions, right? And then even below that, anybody actually healthy and within that 0 to 65 age range, practically nobody died like at all. It was all on people that already had problems, but and that's unfortunate, but you could even say that with any type of illness that goes around. If you're immunocompromised and it's flu season, you shouldn't be outside anyways. That you have to protect yourself, and that's why you have countries like Sweden and Japan that did it right, where they put laws in place, aid in place for certain groups to stay at home, and everybody else, you got to go carry our asses in the economy and let life move on.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Like the Fauci thing is he doesn't want to move forward until everyone's vaccinated, and that's when I almost like feel
I'm
like there's
not
some
getting the damn
credibility.
vaccine. I probably already have the antibodies now if I get a test.
Saying I'm sure I've had it, but like who knows? Because people that are healthy don't usually feel it. But my main point is, so the one more death or no more death, whatever, is complete bullshit.
Yeah.
Because people, so this is like another like really an economic principle. People want to protect all these special groups, which the special group being those that are susceptible to coronavirus, because you can see the death numbers, right? What you don't see is, like you were saying before, the economic impact that it has on lost jobs, homelessness, suicide. Those numbers aren't directly related to coronavirus. Like you're not able to tell what those numbers are, but those greatly outweigh one person dying. I know that. So it's almost like until there's a way to analyze, there's got to be some way they can analyze economic, I guess, despair, economic downturn versus deaths, or they can equate
Yeah.
it. This much
Yeah.
economic downturn equals this many people dying. They got to almost use like a mathematical approach to it,
Hmm.
because even if you can't see the people that it's hurting, it is, and it's hurting people on a way greater scale than people affected by the actual virus.
Well, it's just recently too, and again, I've been saying that narrative from the start, just because of I saw. I mean, most sensible people that had any recollection of history knew that this would be an economic downturn. This is what was going to run us into a recession, right? And historically, like we were talking about, suicides, alcohol, drugs, homelessness, all that happens when the economy goes to crap. But just now, some of the big media outlets like MSN finally acknowledged it. CNBC put out an article. CNBC's exact headline like 2 days ago was experts think amount of new suicides will be larger than the COVID deaths. Right? It
exactly.
was
So then
something along those lines.
Big Pharma's just gonna be keep pumping out more Xanax, for all those
More
anxiety
Xan, yeah.
people.
It's it's just I don't know why it took us so long to acknowledge that, but how many COVID deaths of we'll say I'm not trying to sound sick when I say this, right? Because if you're a person in this group, you should be staying home. You protect yourself, right? That's your responsibility. With the average death age at 75, and most of them have health problems or are obese or things like that, have heart problems. How many of those deaths, if we're going to have more suicides, and that's just suicides, that's not the 33 million people getting displaced. Like, we've never seen that. That could moon a lot of these bad things. But how many of those COVID deaths equate to, say, some dude that's healthy and 25 that's now going to kill himself? Even if you just look at economic productivity, that scale is weighed really heavy on one side. Like, the deaths do not equate. So
And that was one of the biggest questions that I had. How many newly married couples, they just bought a house, right? They have this large mortgage they have to pay. What happens when all those people are sitting there thinking, how the hell am I going to pay for this when everything's done? I'm so far behind, and just decide that either they're depressed, right? I mean, it's a real thing, right? Depression is a real thing. They're going to have some sort of anxiety that they need to be treated for, or they just decide to take their own life. You know, that has to be taken into consideration more than anything, because we're the most diagnosed country for depression and anxiety in the whole world, right? Obviously, there's a problem.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that even not as extreme, say like this could say people are affected by depression, anxiety, then people can get diagnosed with things and then collect disability or never be a productive member of society again. Like you can get a diagnosis and then you lose a person from the economy, right? And maybe that's not a death to compare to coronavirus, but it's all in there somewhere. It's just you can't see it. So that's why there's going to be people saying no more deaths until no one dies from coronavirus. We're not opening, and that's just stupid wishful thinking.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, we're never opening then. Everybody's going to be good little soldiers sitting in their houses, just watching the news and gathering your stimulus check and door dashing for some McDonald's, and everybody
Hey,
will be fine, right?
hey,
Like, I'm sure. Go ahead.
No, it's the same thing. That'd be like the dumbest thing, being like, hey, no one's allowed to go back outside. We're going to practice social distancing. Nothing's going to go back to any sort of normalcy. We're going to cut more than $33 million jobs, right? There's going to be more than that many people unemployed because of flu deaths. Think of how outrageous that would be to say. Well, COVID, essentially, like Ben said, works in kind of the same way, right? It's a virus. Well, how the hell are we just going to be able to, it's so stupid. It's such a dumb way to look at it. And I don't mean to be rude or bashful or anything like that, but it's the truth.
Well, even, how long has the flu been around? We don't have a cure for the flu. I mean, we have the flu vaccine, but it literally has like a 50% success rate. So,
what's a disease that a lot of old people have? Like just a normal
disease?
Just like a chronic illness that so.
I know, like
one
that, like you
said,
the
first thing would come to mind would be arthritis as a first thing, or back problems. That's.
I know. I'm trying to think like one that's like eventually going to kill them. So yeah, say like heart disease. Say someone just.
I mean, you could say cancer.
Yeah, cancer. Well, I think cancer kills more than heart disease, right?
Anything. I'm just thinking like one that can be lived with. So say, how many people in the past, like elderly people that had a pre-existing condition, ended up dying from that? But it might have been they might have got the common cold. And that kind of pushed them over the edge. But it wasn't the coronavirus cold killing them back then. It was their pre-existing condition.
Yeah. You just have a worse immune system the older you get. And especially if you're out of shape and stuff like that, it's just tough to fight off anything. So
I wasn't able to listen to the whole the last JRE episode. I was kind of like just doing some other stuff for work. But today you had on Rhonda Patrick, who has she's a doctor. She was on there. She's a big advocate about knowing about the immune system, learning about it, and learning how to boost it and stuff like that. Shouldn't that be something that's more focused on, rather than thinking like no more deaths? Like, why don't we just figure out a way to make ourselves healthier as human beings, right? So that we can combat all these illnesses when we're confronted with them. I know everybody with pre-existing conditions isn't going to be able to do that, right? But at least you're cutting some of it down. And that's just being, I think, like a healthy human being, like just being a proactive thinker. And
yeah. No, I fully agree with that take.
That's such a deeper issue than people's general health.
Yeah.
There's I mean, what three main things go into someone's health and their psyche? Like I would say their diet, their sleep, their diet, and their exercise.
And
Mhm.
probably
And
sleep. Yeah, those probably social interaction. I'd say
that could be
maybe more than
another,
sleep.
maybe if there's like 5 big pillars.
Virtual
Yeah,
interaction.
The
virtual
thing is,
interaction.
people know what they should be doing for their health, and nobody does it. And
Yeah,
you read the 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, right?
yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's been a minute, so I couldn't like name the rules, but
yeah. Well, I'm reading that right now, and it's basically like when someone like needs to do something like that, you can show them or you can tell them all you want, but people don't. People aren't going to be healthy because there's a myriad of reasons why people won't do it. It's just such a greater issue.
yeah, just goes down to the psych at the end of the day. Like,
It's
um,
deep in there.
before we kind of get off this completely, because I like where the conversation's going, I wanted to mention Fauci, and if we're kind of getting into the politics of this, right? Fauci literally every day has a different story to tell, which is why I'm
Different
so
take,
confused.
baby.
Because everybody was for him in the start, kind of juicing him, right? Even Trump was with him, all this.
Trump
And
called his ass
I'm
out
not,
today, I think,
he
didn't he?
could be an intelligent guy. I don't know. Anybody I've talked to that's in the medical community actually says he's a dumbass, but that's obviously only a handful of people. Um, but the dude, like today, right? So, or it was yesterday, I think, was the Senate conference. He's talking about how we shouldn't reopen, but if we do, we have to be really careful on this, and this, right? And then he's saying, it'd be better to wait for vaccine or whatever. Okay, which one? We're not getting a vaccine. You're in la la land if you think we'll have a vaccine, and if you think that's going to happen within a 3 or 4 year period, you're still in la la land. It's way out. That's just how good medicine works. Two, Fauci, a few hours later, is in a CNBC article thinking, literally the quote is, "There's a good shot we'll never have a vaccine." So he literally, within a span of a few hours, is telling us we should wait for a vaccine, and then he says we're probably not getting a vaccine. So what? I don't even understand the narrative. We're supposed to sit inside forever? Like,
Probably.
before I forgot about that, I just wanted to get on that, but
I just think that they have a microphone in their face every day, so they just got to talk and
yeah.
crap comes out, and
I think
they're
there's a
not
lot
like.
of under the table money going on, a lot of on both sides. I mean, Republican and Democrat. There's a lot of narratives being
I'm
pushed.
I'm gonna be curious to see who ends up coming out. Like, if you're talking about big corporations or anybody who's uh, receiving a big financial gain coming out of this, just to see, not necessarily like talking conspiracies, but just to see, how they benefited from it and if there was any sort of influence from, a little shady politics and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
There always is.
I know,
Well, it
that's what I'm
goes. I
saying.
mean, there's plenty of. We had the one senator that dumped stocks right before the initial sell-off. We had one guy that just got found out. Another senator that dumped right before the initial sell-off. So right after the first. So back in January when Congress first got briefed, they dumped, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on like that, and you could even say yesterday, or was it 2 days ago, David Tepper, big hedge fund guy, he literally crashed the market single-handedly when he was in a CNBC interview and said that he thinks the market's overvalued, right? And we drilled like that. I mean, did he just load up on a bunch of bearish positions and then go on CNBC, woohoo, right? So it's a big there's a big financial game just going on. That doesn't even get into the political game per se, but
Yeah, and the stock market is like complete. Like the stock market isn't the economy either, and I think that's what we get caught up in sometimes too. Like you see 1 ounce of news, and then we're down 1% in the stock market, and it's just like
especially when it's coming from a hedge fund manager, his 5-minute interview.
it's absolutely insane. Just the news that's coming out. I almost just want to stop looking at it all, just from an investing
Yeah,
standpoint.
it's definitely not healthy to keep up with news, especially politics, because I still am very into politics. I do keep up to at least be educated on topics that are important to me, but I mean, even through social media or just reading headlines or whatever, reading articles, it is not good for your psyche. Like, and I've experienced it that you can literally go on Twitter and see a thread and you can actually get mad. Like you literally can put your phone down and you're like, wow, that just frustrated me reading that, right? Like it's not good for people. And I think it's even worse now that everybody's stuck at home, so they have all day to be on Twitter and
The
just sound
tro-
off. But
in the trolls are probably a million times more likely. You know what I mean? They have infinite more time on Twitter just to try to piss people off. Even I wonder how much of that actually goes on. You know, like people just deliberately pissing people off with, you know what I mean, being told, to try to manipulate people to think a certain way. Like
Yeah.
that pisses me off. Like I'll get down a rabbit hole sometimes just reading random tweets and then trying to do more research, and then you realize it's just a big dead end, like a freaking big black hole to nowhere. Just complete useless amounts of your time. That's when I get pissed off then.
Well, people take that as news too. They don't realize someone might just see something and take it as face value when they're on Twitter and it's like an
Yeah.
unverified account just saying something
Well,
idiotic.
dude, even the verified accounts, like you can't. There's the
Yes.
majority of Twitter you cannot trust. There's so many accounts, and that's just, I guess, news in general. But so much just gets absolutely misreported.
News has such a leftist, like a leftist viewpoint that they sensitize anything that doesn't go with like a certain topic, which I hate. If you have one certain view, you could say one word. Someone on Rogan was showing it like on a Facebook thing. Like they would just like search. I think it was Tim Pool. Like you would just post one thing on Facebook about just this guy's name. I can't remember what the topic was about, but just understanding that I feel like freedom is being infringed upon so much that it used to be more of an open platform, right? Where you could kind of say whatever you wanted to do, like say whatever you wanted to, just do whatever you wanted. But now they have a control on that, so you really have to do research to
See,
understand.
or I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Nick.
you're
Sorry,
good. No, you're
cut off
good.
there.
No, you're good.
So, kind of what you said there about the sense of censoring around social media platforms. And have we discussed this, Nick? This has been a topic I actually wanted to get on.
Yeah,
I don't know if we've talked about it, but no matter what way you spin it, to have a relevant idea, it has to be on social media nowadays. Period. So, I would make an argument that that's truly the platform of speech nowadays, right? In the modern world is online. So I very rarely am for a government regulation. I'm a pretty small government type of person, but in a sense, I do think that Facebook, Twitter, blah blah blah, should be monitored by the government because it's clearly one side rules all those platforms. I mean, blatantly. It's like this guy I follow named Zuby, which he's been on Joe Rogan before. I don't know if you know him, Alex or Nick, but he
I think I
literally
know him.
got a 5-day suspension for. So some guy was criticizing him, right? He didn't even check the profile or anything. He just responded to him. All he said was "Okay, dude." ... That was it. Okay. It turned out that was like a dude who registers as a woman, right? So he got the
Yep.
pronouns wrong. He got banned for 5 days, like immediately too. And it wasn't malicious at all. He was just he literally saw some hate tweet and he responds, "Okay, dude." That was it. So it's pretty blatant that it's so far skewed that it's gonna have to be regulated at some point because one side gets completely stomped out, and that's another thing I don't get. Like maybe it's me personally, but if I feel I have a strong idea, I would totally love to hear somebody talk against it because it only if I can explain my position against that, it only strengthens it, right? It looks like you're cowering down when you won't let one side speak. It's like you can't beat them, right? If I'm saying something, and I know some other dude's gonna is on the other side of the aisle is BSing, right? I want other people to hear that. They can realize how stupid he is. When you cancel somebody, like the cancel culture we have, you give that person credibility because all of a sudden they're relevant, right? They got shut down on Twitter, so now let's go see what they're all about, right? So, I don't
And
know.
I think Nick would agree with like what I have to say. It's like the same thing you're saying. When someone like opposes what you're saying, you get to look at it with an open mind from their viewpoint and think, okay, maybe my opinion may change a little bit, right? You get to at least change the way you think a little bit instead of just canceling out whatever someone has to say. You just say, oh, someone has a R next to their name, someone has a D next to their name. Nope, don't listen to what they say. That's such a bad way to go about things, and that's not
Yeah.
sharpening your knowledge as a human being at all. I think Nick, you would probably agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like to have conversation and hear topics, and that's what's so weird about these social media companies, and then just media companies in general. Like, are there any that are like they're all very liberal, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
very.
especially in how like obviously like the Facebook and Twitter, you really wonder about those guys though, like who like created Facebook and Twitter, like Zuckerberg and is it? I know Dorsey's the CEO. I don't think he created Twitter.
No,
I
but
think he
Dorsey has something to do with
was
it.
he one of the founders? He was in the
Yeah.
original group, I believe.
But what gets them to push those agendas so hard? Are they just at their core very leftist in the way that they think and like to operate and have the ideal for the world, or are they gotten money from those sort of?
That's the
I think
question I ask all the time.
I think it's a mixture because once people realize these platforms are the modern way of communicating, I mean, social media is way more influential than a news channel. I mean, it just is.
Absolutely.
The amount of eyes to see it, it's just there's a lot of under the table narrative and money going around.
It's
Definitely.
crazy because obviously capitalism, more favored by the right, has greatly helped these social media companies and these guys who have
Oh yeah.
risen to such power.
I like
But
that
now
little
that
plug
they,
there.
now that they've like got enough bread, do they just want to cater to the left so that they can, because they think that's a greater user base or people they can get money from easier, or they think they're making the world a better place at this point because they got their money? Now let's spread the love. I would just love to hear a sit down with someone like that, but I
Well,
doubt
I don't
that
think they'd ever be willing to talk.
conversation.
Sadly, maybe on their deathbed, but
You
Yeah.
don't think they'll want to come on Robot Mentality episode 13?
No.
Zuck?
yeah, hey, if Zuckerberg wants to come on, sure. No face cam for him though. The dude's ugly. He's not allowed. But
Come on.
it goes down to at the end of the day too, when these platforms get so political, I think that, I don't have exact numbers or I don't know how I could find this out, but that definitely drives engagement. When you're angry, when you get people angry, that's when they'll sit and tweet and argue with one dude in a massive thread, and they're just gonna pick one dude to sit and argue with for an hour, right? That's just how Twitter works. I don't know about Facebook, so I don't use Facebook, but
For old
when you
people.
get people angry, when you get them filled with emotion, right? That's when they're gonna sit on the damn app all day.
Yeah, and just keep scrolling. That's all there is to do right now. So it's a perfect storm for them, really, and they can
Yeah,
pass whatever agenda along that they want.
yeah.
All
And
right.
it, well, okay. I think it's time to get off that topic for the most part. I have more, but we'll save that.
And go off.
What else do you have, Ben? Let's hear a little bit more, and
I
then
was
we
just
can
gonna
pivot to
talk
something
about
else.
going back to the censoring, right? Because a lot of hashtags get censored immediately. Like if it's like say a pro-Trump hashtag, it immediately gets pulled off trending, even though it's way higher amount of tweets than what's under it, right? That will get switched to number one. I don't know. It's just all, yeah. That was really all I had to add. But let's get you mentioned Jordan Peterson. Let's get into Jordan Peterson a bit and kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier, where there's kind of this bridge in people's lives, or at least there should be, of where you kind of are branching off for your parents' ideals, right? Because obviously growing up is nature and nurture, and you're gonna think a lot like the environment you were raised in. That's just how people are wired, and that's the way it's always gonna be. But I mean, I kind of hit that where I started kind of exploring other ideas. Probably when I got my first iPhone, which I had a phone before, but when I got an iPhone and kind of really had, full access to the internet all the time, that's when I kind of started to discover some ways I think differently than my parents and kind of delving into different things. But so probably, I don't know, maybe around 15, but give me a take on that. So kind
Let's
of
hear
going
it from
from
you,
being
Alex.
just going along to maybe kind of thinking for yourself.
I guess I didn't really start thinking for myself until I went to college, until I got to see a real, I guess, different person's view other than a rural Wisconsin beer drinking farm kids. I like the way they view life. I think Nick will probably end up being the same, but that was for me, and just the idea of it's all right to be different. Like where we come from, it's like you play sports, you don't do drugs, like alcohol worse than weed, right? Weed is bad where we're from, like anti weed. Like I thought that was the dumbest thing once I got to college, because then you get to realize, oh, there's productive people in all forms of life who smoke marijuana, right? Who use CBD products. And I
Yeah.
think that is just like one of the bigger eye openers for me. And also the aspect of you don't just have to go be someone who works for someone. And where Nick and I have brought up, and I'll let Nick go right after this. There's like people don't want to incentivize like go out and like start your own business, start your own train of thoughts, like going against the grain. None of that happens where we come from, and I think that's just rural America in general, where people maybe from more of an urban upbringing are exposed to different aspects of life at an earlier age. But for me, it was a freshman year in college. Like I had to learn real quick about how the world and how other people worked. Just from stepping onto campus the first day and playing baseball with kids from Chicago, Rockford, you know what I mean, and just other places, San Diego, and just learning how the way they look at things and how their aspect in life is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I share a lot of the same ideas there, but what I would have to say is growing up, I definitely see the similar things to you, but like I guess like in a high school setting, like if you were different and like I was definitely like the cookie cutter kid, like I did everything that you're supposed to do. I feel like there's a couple people who run a small town and then everyone tries to be like them, whether there's really no reason to, but there's just a lot of like if you do anything differently, you get like made fun of or looked down on by just people in the group that are normal. And then I think I just lived like a really naive life up into a point where I just kind of went along with everything.
Naive is the word.
Yeah, like I even made it well into college until like I started, I would say maybe even until like a year ago is even in the last year is when I really started to take ownership of my own things. And that's like the advice I would give to anyone like in high school really is just as cliche as it sounds, like just be yourself and do what makes you happy or like what you like doing, because you can be, if you're just trying to fit in like a normal kid, like I would, that like I had done, like you're a total sellout.
Yeah.
And it goes down to your thoughts. It goes down to the way you dress, what you say you believe,
J-
all sorts of stuff. So I think like getting out on your own. I think reading has been really big for me, doing stuff like that, just like filling your brain with objectively with other opinions and different views on things. Really.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And like for me, it was just to get the free thinking. Like I love the robot mentality. Like you're not going with the herd, right? That's even like a sales thing. Is like, hey, I was over at so and so's. I'm in the area. This company is doing this. Would you guys like to check out what they're doing? Right? Everybody wants to be part of the herd. Well, I think that's so stupid, and that's what I think. Like growing up, I guess, I was in that mindset. Like, oh, someone else is doing something, I got to do that, and that I guess like for my freshman year, it was just a more of a free thinking. You know, like, I don't care what
Mhm.
people think, the way I dress, my opinions on certain things. Oh, sorry, I got COVID. I'm just joking.
Damn. All
Lost
but
right.
a good one.
but I guess you know what I'm saying, Ben. Just to free
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Like that's my big thing. Like I always talk with Nick about it. Like just for people to have their own opinions, their own ideas, and then like you want to do something, go do it. You don't have to be part of the system.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I think something that fed into the naivety that I like feel like looking back on is I had like a very cookie cutter life. Like I didn't have any challenges really up until maybe like my second, third year of college to make me question anything. Like, yeah, it's working. Let's just keep rocking with what I'm doing until you
Yeah.
get like, I feel like everyone kind of needs a jolt to their system, whether that's, a big personal event happening, whether it's something in your family. I think like you said, it was when you got an iPhone. I think like anything that like just changes the way you see the world, that kind of like shakes you from your normal point of view. That's when you
Yeah.
really start looking for other things that I think is healthy, really.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'd say I started looking into stuff, when I got my own phone and like, really access to the internet. When I really got on the robot mentality path, was I got it's been a little over a year, so the end of last April. And that was just like a brief spell. Before that, it's just like lack of confidence, like anxiety, depression type of thing, right? For a brief period, and that just kind of jolted me from every angle. Like I spent most of my day gaming. I wasn't really doing anything that was going to further me in life, things like that. So, I mean, that's what hit me. But I don't know. There's just such a like you guys said, it's the cool thing to be a sheep, right? Is go along with whatever's cool at the time, whether that be the what you enjoy doing in your free time, whether it be the politics you follow, whatever, right? So, we as a human species would further ourselves much much more if everybody was encouraged to think for themselves and actually come up with things. And it's a shame because that's kind of narrative in the U.S. right now. We've been fighting that for a while. Is that you're just a part of the group, right? You're a person, but all you are is a part of the group. Just think like everybody else, and you'll get
Mhm.
along. It should be everybody's an individual, right? I mean, that's what I believe in. But
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are like terrified to be not
be
associated with the group.
themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like if you're yourself, then everything rests on you. Like if you say you make a decision, you're in a group and then it gets questioned, it's like, well, all these people do it. But if you make a decision and it fails, it's all on you. But
Yeah.
eventually, I think most people, not everyone, but I know I've been able to in the last year, like kind of take ownership of my own individuality in life and kind of go into things that I want to do. And it's literally not for anybody else but myself and my own, like, I think just personal growth and development is like a big goal that I have that if you asked me a year ago, I'd have been like, that sounds stupid. Like I wouldn't have said it sounds stupid, but it's just like nothing that would have even been on my radar
Crossed your mind, yeah. I think it's got to be like a challenging event or some sort of like opposing event that happens in someone's life that maybe didn't grow up with any challenges or any need to think a different way. Because I almost feel like as an athlete, as a competitor, like it's like everybody's like afraid to fail, right? Everybody's afraid that if they try to do something and they don't succeed, or they try something different and then people make fun of them for it, like then they go right back into the herd mentality. I think that's like the biggest thing that's drawing people back. Like someone needs to almost hit like that rock bottom, like that something where it's like sink or swim here. Like you're either gonna freaking rise up and you're just gonna say, I don't care what happens here, right? I'm my own person, or you're just
Mhm.
gonna go right back into that herd mentality. I think that's like a big thing even in athletics. Like you have to have some sort of failure to really appreciate success. Like I know that sounds very cliche and everything, but I truly believe that.
Yeah, and just what you said, like whether it's a rock bottom or just like a moment when you like, it's almost like a surreal moment when you can like realize. And I don't know if you listen to this podcast, Alex, but I told Ben on one of the podcasts my story of like my gaming rock
Yeah,
bottom and
I
why.
listened. Well, you told me about it in person. I remember you telling me about that actually over
Oh,
the phone.
it was literally like an epiphany I had. Like as crazy as and like funny as the story is, like I haven't touched a game on the PC in like 7 months, and I was strongly addicted before that. I think people like I don't know, like sometimes, and you can't force it to happen either. I think like one day something happens to a lot of people, and that's what changes them. And I think a lot of like even like successful people and like celebrities or famous people, they can all like a lot of them can point to a moment, something of that nature.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ben?
No, I fully agree with that. Like I hit that wall, like I said last year, and you got to get to the point. And I guess I don't know. This is kind of cliche when you say it, but if you want to get on a path to maybe kind of personal growth, you got to get to a point where you hate losing more than you love winning, if that makes sense. Like you just when you're not doing something or you're on a negative path for your life, like you have to hate that so much, that direction that you're going, to start getting off it. I don't even know if that made sense what I just said, but
I would add to that because it did make sense, and the way I think of it, and something I just read from JP himself, is like being a failure. Like, well, we define success and failure very binary; it's one or the other. But it's way easier to choose failure every day, like from a micro standpoint, like day to day. Like, yes, it's easier to lay in bed rather than do a home workout. It's easier
yeah,
to watch Netflix rather than read a chapter of your book, right? But over time, that is such a deep hole you've dug yourself into negatively, to where if you're just choosing these things daily, um, just small victories, like whether he's his meme, whether it's making your bed or whether it's
make
just
your
doing
damn
something
bed.
small.
That's right.
Just if you can just like start to get small victories and let them accumulate up, you're going to be in so
Yeah,
much better of a
yeah.
place long
And
term.
even just what that does to your confidence immediately. Even if it's that one small thing, the literally like right when I get up, my room's clean, right? I make my bed or something like that. Which it doesn't have to be that for everybody, but just the small thing of getting in a positive habit, just what that does to your psyche is like immeasurable, at least for me.
No, I agree
Yeah.
100%. Like for me, it was like a goal setting thing. Like every day, I would just like sit. Like for me, I had it on my phone, and I still do it to this day. Like I'll just check a calendar. I'll have goals and everything that I want to accomplish, and just remind myself, like, all right, first thing I got to do in the day, I got to wake up, I got to think, evaluate whatever I want to do today, the rest of the week and get after it. Like, at least have something in sight.
And that's why I think it's so important to, like, whether it's journal or just to write out your days, that whether it's the day before. I like to write out my days like in the morning once I like get settled, get going into work, and then I can decide like how I'm going to arrange my day to like do different types of business things. Here's another like little tidbit that I found. I saw it on a YouTube video just for productivity. So like our mind gets bogged down by stuff we eventually like don't even notice. Like, for example, I have my coffee mug on my desk from this morning. I had a nice coffee, but it's like clutter on my desk. And maybe you have dishes in your sink that have been there for 5 days. Maybe it's a pile of clothes in the corner of your room. When you constantly like eventually become blind to things like that, it's so bad for your psyche. Like, and this was the recommendation I got, and I've been doing it for the most part. If you see anything that's like displaced that you can fix or make better, and it takes less than a minute or two, you just do it instantly, and then it's over and it's gone. And that's just like, I feel like that makes you get things done so much better, because then something that takes 5 minutes isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
I
Well,
agree
it
That's all.
starts with
100%.
the small things too. If you know that you can fix something fast, you can look at a larger issue and actually
Preach,
attack
Ben.
it, right?
Good habits. Good habits. Just
Yeah.
start little
Yeah.
little steps. It's not, you can't climb the mountain in one, you know what I mean, in one hop. It's got
Yeah.
to start a little bit at a
Gotta
time.
make your damn bed, as my boy says.
Literally, I mean, that's why I'm so on that right now. Is that was chapter 4 that I just read. I think, what was the title? I don't even remember. But another plug for a book, The Power of Habit, as we're talking about habits, that might be the best book I've ever read.
You might not say that after you're done with JP's.
JP's is really good. It's a dense read.
Dude,
But
I just
Dense
watched
read.
JP on JRE. I think he was on JRE a couple times, wasn't he?
yep.
Yeah, he has been a few times. He hasn't been in the public eye in a while. He's
Didn't he have like a coma or something?
he's been through some shit in the past while. So it was about a year and a half ago. Well, first he had major diet issues, him and his daughter both, to where they're only on a steak diet. They literally only eat steak because he's like allergic, or his body can't process any other type of food, which is
What
weird,
the
but it's
hell?
what works for him. So that gave him a lot of health issues. Then he figured out the steak thing, he was doing a little bit better. Then his wife died of cancer, and he's always battled like depression, anxiety, and he went in a spiral. He was doing really poorly. I don't remember how, but he ended up in a coma. They had to go to Russia for his family for some special treatment that they'd only do in Russia, and somehow he lived. And now apparently he's doing better. He's tweeting again here and there, but he hasn't been in the public eye at all in like the last year and a half, 2 years. So we need him back. The world needs him. This is the time we need him most.
He's a good man.
He's a
Absolutely.
great man.
And I remember watching. I watched both of his podcasts. Actually, that would be like 2 of my 500 podcasts I watch of Joe Rogan. But yeah, I really enjoyed his. That I think he was like in like the early 1000s of his. I remember when I was in college and I was like getting in rabbit holes and stuff and just trying to, you know, broaden my point of view and then kind of read up on him a little bit. I really liked his stuff. So plug for Jordan Peterson.
Oh yeah. My biggest regret when I first became a fan of his, and that's kind of where a lot of my rabbit holes started, with a lot of ideas similar to Peterson's.
Open platform, baby.
Just seeing him, I think I saw him on the H3 podcast actually before Joe Rogan. That led me to Joe Rogan and blah 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 blah. But right when I started watching him, and at the same time I was watching some other like political commentators and things like that. But he actually did he did a speaking series. I don't remember if it was for his book or before it, but he traveled all over the country speaking series, and he did one in St. Louis with Dave Rubin. And literally, I saw it the night after, and I was so disappointed that I didn't know it existed, because I would have killed to gone and see him in person. But so hopefully he gets better and he tours again or something. But
We'll see. He's not even that old, actually. I think he's under 60.
yeah, if everybody could see some of Peterson's content and actually take a little bit of time to reflect on it, this world would be 50 billion times the better place than it is.
I've definitely taken lots of quality things that I've used in life just that I've heard him talk about. And I mean, he puts all his lectures on YouTube to watch.
His lectures are fantastic. Yeah, I think I don't know if I've watched them all, but I've watched most I can get my hands on over time. Just the dude just is like a walking, flipping computer. Like, it's crazy. He knows a lot about any field you throw at him, which is pretty cool. and the psychology behind said field. Think of it. It can be, somebody could talk about business and he knows what's going on, or religion, he knows what's going on, and it's just cool.
Dude's genius.
Yeah.
Well, do we got any more talking points, or should we?
Nah, I just want to tell you guys, like, I think it's really cool what you guys are doing, and I respect the hell out of you guys, using what you guys know and just trying to reach people out there, and I think it's really cool.
All right. Well,
Appreciate that, man. Thanks for
we
coming
appreciate
on.
you having you on.
Big
We
fan.
might have to
It's
make
been a
Alex
pleasure. Hope to
regular.
have you back, my man.
Absolutely.
It's good to not have to just hear the sailor kid. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go.
Finally, I didn't know Ben could shut up.
Yeah, no, seriously. Yeah, I out-talked Nick. Definitely cut him off and all that.
That's just the yin and the yang. You're like the play-by-play on the color commentary. And I think I kind of do it to myself too. I ask a lot of questions when I talk. So I like to hear the angles. But yeah, I think this was a good one. This was fun. We'll definitely have Alex back on. Sign him off, Ben.
Do we have any? Well, probably not anything to react to. We've exercised our time, but
Yeah, we don't have a Discord.
ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Robot Mentality Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We will be back next Thursday night, same time as always. Can't wait to talk to you, Alex. Thank you again. Nick, you want to close it out?
Yeah, one thing before, ladies, make sure you follow him, Alex_Stodola.
Spell Stodola for us.
Stodola.
Okay, ladies, hit him up. He'll take you to Pound Town in Pound Town.
As always, robots, I'm Nick. This is Ben. We're joined tonight by Alex Stodola. Good night, robots.
Have a good night.
Peace.
Peace.
Let's go.